Wanted to record a little video to discuss Billy Joe Saunders versus Martin Murray on the 14th of April. Initial thoughts, my first thought, as you guys know, long-time viewers will know, I'm a huge fan of Billy Joe Saunders. He's probably my favourite active boxer, and he's someone who I've supported on this channel from day dot, really. But my initial thoughts are, this is good news that they're keeping Billy Joe active. I think activity is something that Billy Joe needs more than most fighters, and I think we saw the benefits of it when he took on David Lemieux. You know, obviously getting out so quickly after his win over Willie Monroe Jr. We saw him stay in good shape, we saw him stay motivated, and as a result we saw a massively improved performance. I think it's good that he's having a homecoming fight. I think it's good that he's having a fight against a domestic level fighter. And I think Martin Murray, whilst he may not be the ideal opponent in terms of style or in terms of the elite, you know, Billy Joe probably has been matched fairly tough over the years, and I'm not going to begrudge him a fight where he's a substantial favourite to win, especially after his last fight against David Lemieux. You know, for me, if they can keep Billy Joe active and box him 3 or 4 times in 2018, you know, I'm happy to see a fight like this, a fight of this nature, let's put it that way. Addressing the elephant in the room, this is not a competitive fight. This is not a fight where there'll be too many of us out there picking Martin Murray to win. You know, I can imagine that Martin Murray to win this fight would be very, very long odds. I'd imagine it'd be 10 to 1 or greater with the bookmakers. And frankly, even if it was 20 to 1, I wouldn't be picking Martin Murray to beat Billy Joe Saunders, because for me, Murray doesn't have anything like the skill level of Billy Joe Saunders, and he also is very, very, very light puncher. So Billy Joe's been very durable in his career to date. You know, it's hard to even give Martin Murray really the typical puncher's chance you have in a boxing match. So, yeah, for me, is it a competitive fight? Probably not. You look at Martin Murray, he's someone who's come up just short every time at the top level. People say that he's had some bad luck in his career against the likes of Felix Sturm, against the likes of Sergio Martinez, and that may be true. But more recently, we've kind of seen him come up a bit short against the likes of Arthur Abraham and George Groves. He's now 35 years old, and he's now, you know, I know he stepped up to super middleweight. He's now stepping back down to middleweight, and his performances since that loss to George Groves, for me, have been very, very, very questionable. I remember him fighting in Monaco against Nuhu Lawal. That was a really, really scrappy, messy fight where Martin Murray, you know, really got taken to the well for my money. There was the fight against Gabriel Rosado in 2017 that he won by majority decision. That was a highly controversial fight. That was a fight that could have gone either way. That was back down at middleweight. Then there was a fight I haven't watched more recently against a guy named Arman Tarozan, so I don't know what happened there. But, you know, obviously against a lower level of opponent. But you kind of look at Martin Murray, for me, he's in the autumn of his career. For me, he's a guy who, you know, it's very easy when you take a loss to say, oh, I think I need to step back down in weight class. People forget that Martin Murray blamed his losses at middleweight because he was getting drained at middleweight and he needed to go up to super middleweight. And I remember interviews with him at super middleweight saying he felt so much better at the new weight, and he actually thought his career would end at light heavyweight. I can remember seeing those. You know, now we see him back down at middleweight after suffering another loss or 2 against Abraham and against Groves, and now he's saying, you know, he wasn't sure that middleweight, super middleweight was for him in the end. So, you know, I don't know. Martin Murray, for me, has been one of these fringe contenders who's been in and around the sort of top 10, top 15, top 20 for many, many years, but he's kind of one of these guys who, whilst he's just about done enough to keep himself in the conversation, he's never put the form together or put the performances in which makes you think he's the kind of guy who can jump from that top 10 to that sort of top 5 or top 3 and to that sort of world-class elite level. Billy Joe Saunders, for me, has done that. His performance against David Lemieux was very, very, very impressive. Lemieux is a sort of top 5 type fighter. His performance against Chris Eubank Jr., you know, arguably that's a performance that has looked increasingly strong over the course of time. There was the performance against Andy Lee. You know, Billy Joe Saunders has got far, far, far better wins than Martin Murray. He's far fresher than Martin Murray. He's got far more momentum in his career, far more upside, far more future earning potential than a guy like Martin Murray. So you'd have to say the chips are stacked against Martin Murray, especially going to fight as the away fighter on a Billy Joe Saunders show, if you like. Now, with regards to styles, one thing about Martin Murray is that he isn't the most offensively minded fighter. He doesn't truly commit to his offence. He's someone who can fight quite negative, quite defensive fights, and when he's forced to lead in fights, sometimes they become very scrappy, very clumsy, quite disappointing affairs. With Billy Joe Saunders, he's at his absolute best when someone charges at him and when he can use his movement to create space, when he can time them and counter them and get crisp, clean work off. We've seen style matchups work out very, very well for Billy Joe Saunders against guys like David Lemieux, against guys like Chris Eubank Jr. Stylistically, I think fans could have prepared themselves that this may not be that kind of fight. Martin Murray may stand off Billy Joe, he may give Billy Joe space. There's a possibility that neither guy will necessarily want to lead in this fight, and it may be a slightly clumsier affair. It may be more resemblant of the Willie Monroe Jr. fight than the David Lemieux fight. I don't look at these two styles and think that's going to be an epic war, or that's necessarily going to be a good clash of styles. But nevertheless, I'll watch the fight. Another thing that's occurred to me, this is a very, very big test for Billy Joe Saunders' marketability and for what Frank Warren's really doing on Box Nation and BT Sports. They're taking this fight to the O2, and that's potentially a gamble and potentially a risk because if they fight at the O2 and don't sell very many tickets and there's loads of empty seats, it has the potential to be a bit embarrassing, especially if you look at what the other side do when they go to the O2 sometimes. So Billy Joe Saunders has fought a lot at like the Copper Box. He fought a lot of York Hall earlier on in his career. He's obviously had a huge publicity boost by beating David Lemieux, and he probably is the marquee name and marquee fighter of Box Nation and BT Sports. So I hope that he can sell a lot of tickets, fill out the O2, and prove that there is some real competition out there. Billy Joe Saunders is going to have to lead the way on this because the co-main event is Terry Flanagan, Maurice Hooker. Now, I've covered that fight somewhat in another video. It's on the YouTube channel. If you just Google Boxing Gossip, The Curious Case of Terry Flanagan, you'll find it. But in that, I talk about Terry Flanagan's lack of marketability, which I think is an established conundrum now in the sport of boxing. So, Billy Joe Saunders is going to have to lead the way in terms of generating interest and ticket sales, because I think there's only a limit to what Terry Flanagan is going to bring to the equation in terms of hyping up his fight against Maurice Hooker, who's something of an unknown name to UK fans. But nevertheless, you've got two world title fights, Billy Joe Saunders and Terry Flanagan, two guys who have held world championships for extended period of times. I appreciate Flanagan's for a vacant title because he's moving up in weight, but you've got two British world champions, two British undefeated fighters, and two world title fights. I assume you're going to get guys like Anthony Yard, like Daniel Dubois on the bill. Maybe we could see some British 50-50 fights, maybe the likes of a Joe Pigford, someone of that nature. Maybe a Leon Woodstock, maybe a Boy Jones Jr. Let's hope Frank turns this into a real decent showing. I can't remember in the last year or two Frank taking a bill to the O2, so hopefully he makes this one special. I hope it does really well for them. I think it's got the potential to be a good night. As for Billy Joe Martin Murray, it's a fight I support, but I do think it is an uncompetitive fight. I don't think there'll be too many making a case for Martin Murray to win, and I'm afraid I think there's a high probability that the styles won't gel, and it could be a fairly negative, fairly ponderous 12 rounds in the ring. But I hope I'm proved wrong on that, and maybe Billy Joe Saunders is really coming into his peak and improving. Martin Murray is really on the slide, and maybe Billy Joe Saunders can go out and make a statement and try and stop Martin Murray. That would be good to see if he could do that. Martin Murray, I'm sure he's a lovely guy. Does he deserve another chance? We could debate that till the cows come home, but he's put himself in the position several times. He's got some name recognition. He's been on the scene for a long time. Fair play to him. He is a guy, there's a few of them on the Matchroom side. I've talked about Martin Murray and Paul Smith. He's kind of a guy who, you know, I feel like I've seen enough of over the years. You know, I don't really feel the urge to check out the latest Martin Murray fight, but I'm sure by the time fight night comes around, you know, I'll get myself up for it. Leave your comments in the section below, guys. Am I, you know, missing something? Could Martin Murray spring the upset? Do you really like the fight? Do you think it will sell? Give me your comments in the section below. Please hit the thumbs up button. Please press subscribe. And as always, do appreciate you guys taking the time to tune into my YouTube channel. Thank you.